Welcome to the 86 Reason Podcasts, a podcast where we explore the crazy world of restaurants, people, and the unique personalities that make up this crazy industry we all choose every day. And I'm here with Raffi Yousefian. Did I say that right?
That's right.
Beautiful.
Hi, Xavier. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad to have you on, Raffi. Where are you in the world today?
I am in New York City, in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, New York, the center of the hipster world, I believe.
Exactly. And I'm in the center of the center. So I am in Greenpoint, Williamsburg, which is like the mecca of the hipsters of the world.
Does that
So,
mean that you can get the best old fashioned and the best pour over coffee at 7 different locations within a block of your house?
yeah, plus natural wine from Burgundy.
Yes. Well, I
Yeah.
can't wait to talk to you a little about New York. But Raffi, so I've always been impressed with you. Your firm Fork CPA is obviously one of the leaders in the restaurant accounting space, and I think often people overlook the importance of having a great back office team to support the day-to-day operations. And it's, as a former operator, I'll tell you firsthand that those kind of tedious day-to-day things that help get you to your month end or even to understanding your numbers, it's really not the reason most of us ever chose to get into the industry, but it's companies like yours that help us, A, understand what's happening on a day-to-day basis, but B, also focus on what we love and making sure it's a sustainable thing to do, or at least if we're losing a bunch of money hand over fist, that we're very honest with ourselves about that.
We are aware of it.
Yeah. I mean, everybody loves foie gras, right, Raffi? But
Yeah.
but this is, I think I'm really interested to learn about your trajectory, because I feel like so many people, especially in the finance world and accounting world, don't necessarily view restaurants as a viable industry, or it's just very difficult. And I'm really excited to learn your perspectives. So I guess to start, Raf, did you ever as a child, or as a kid growing up, did you ever have an experience in restaurants that compelled you to them? Or how did this all happen that you've grown a firm focusing specifically on restaurants?
So, yes. However, that is not fully what defined the restaurant niche or pursuing the restaurant industry when it comes to accounting and finance. So, growing up, I was always surrounded by entrepreneurs, cafe owners, food service business, uncles, friends, family friends, and the passion for restaurants and the entrepreneurial spirit, I think, really started when I was in high school or college. And one of my uncle had a cafe at the time, and he noticed that interest in accounting and bookkeeping. And this all started because I took some extracurricular course in high school where we were introduced to accounting, and all of a sudden it clicked. I was like, this is amazing. This is exactly what I want to do. Because I was never really into academics. I wasn't really a great student, but accounting just sucked me in. I was just really good at it from day one.
So Raffi, did he try to pull you in to learn some of that stuff?
So no, my uncle actually offered me a bookkeeper role in his restaurant, and I was probably 18 or 19 years old. And so, you know, so combining the interest in business and being an entrepreneur and also accounting, I took the opportunity, and I go in, I go, they had a little office in the back of the cafe. And the first thing I suggested was, okay, we get QuickBooks Desktop. And at this point, I don't know anything about actual bookkeeping. I just know that it seems interesting, and I understand debits and credits in accounting. And so he subscribes to the QuickBooks Desktop. We get the software, I install it, and I'll always remember, I was like, okay, give me the invoices. And he gets a big stack of invoices. And I'm like, wow, this this is crazy. But you have to get them. And this was just 1 month's maybe worth of invoices. And it was
Yeah.
big stack of papers. And up until then, he had been writing everything down in a notebook that he had.
Old school.
And so I'm like, yeah. And I was like, let me get this all into QuickBooks Desktop. So I don't know if you remember, but in QuickBooks Desktop, there's an option to add a new company or add a new vendor. So for every vendor, I was adding a new company. So I was setting up a new instance of QuickBooks Desktop. So I really had no idea what I was doing. And so like an
Oh.
hour in, I had like 40 companies set up in QuickBooks Desktop. I'm like, wait,
Oh.
why are there 4 general ledgers? What's going on?
No.
So then I was like, okay, I really don't know what I'm doing. So then I started, I bought this book called Business for Beginners, and there's an accounting chapter, how to do accounts payable. And that's where the interest started. So I always knew I wanted to own my own business and get into accounting. But in 2016, when I actually launched the firm, one of my first clients was my brother-in-law. So he had a catering company and a restaurant, and his accountant was retiring. And so he, at the time, I was working at a smaller firm in Virginia, and he offered for me to do his bookkeeping and taxes and the whole full service finance service offering, if you will.
Yeah.
And so that really kickstarted it. He's my first client, outsourced CFO client, as they
Okay.
say. So I would basically run his entire back office. If there was an insurance issue, a property tax issue, bookkeeping, sales tax, P&Ls, obviously balance sheet, end of year taxes. So that's really where it all started. But in terms of, the reason why we pursued the niche is, I think, mostly the same reason why anyone opens a restaurant. That's the main reason. The best part is we get to have the accountability and control over the food service business without actually having to own a restaurant or a cafe or a bar, which is
Yeah.
really nice. That's the sexy part of the business. The reason why I think a lot of people want to own a restaurant, but there are other reasons why. I think there's something very fulfilling and satisfying about helping brick and mortar, Main Street type of small businesses such as restaurants versus like working with tech startups or
Sure.
nonprofits or government contractors. There's just something
Sure.
very rewarding when you help somebody that has bootstrapped their entire business scale from one location to 15. Like there's no feeling like that. And then you have the value proposition. I think our value proposition is extremely high with restaurants. I think, there's this book called Good to Great, and they talk about how you shouldn't do something or you shouldn't pursue a business unless you think you could be the best at it. And I think we're the best at what we do. So therefore I'm putting all my eggs in this basket. And I think that has a lot to do with it as well. So that's the crazy reason why we got into the restaurant industry, I think.
So we can point at your uncle. Does your uncle still have any restaurants?
Well, yeah, he's retired, but his sons have restaurants. I think 4 or
Ah,
5 at this point. Yeah.
a deep family business. And are you working with them?
No, not anymore. Yeah.
I was going to say, because there's 2 interesting things that you brought up, especially from an entrepreneurial standpoint, that I just wanted to touch on really quick, because I've had similar experiences, and I wonder how you diplomatically, but how you approach this. So I feel like it is hard to work with family at times, and and I'm sure that they were very. It must be tougher to have conversations like, hey, you're not as profitable because of this XYZ or whatever. Like, do you have any advice for people in terms of how to approach working with family, whether you're an outside supporter or like you're doing like a day-to-day position with family? Do you have any like insights on what you think would help to create like a positive kind of?
Well, from a financial consultant / accountant perspective, I can share some advice from that lens. So my family knows I'm pretty transparent,
Yeah.
and I will tell them when they have spinach in their teeth. So and then when you do enough of these conversations, I think I've had like 1,000 conversations or like 1,000 discovery calls about somebody's financials. You get so comfortable talking about money, and it's something at least as Armenians, we're not very comfortable with growing up, especially with family. It's just something, it's taboo to talk about anybody's
Interesting.
finances.
Interesting.
So I think when you get comfortable with those conversations, you become numb to it and you become super objective.
Hmm.
So even if I'm talking to my cousin or my brother-in-law, they know I'm being super objective and there's no emotion involved and it's strictly dollars and cents. So if you approach it with that perspective and you make sure they understand that you're just being a third party, unbiased, objective consultant or advisor, I think it worked out well with us. I don't
Good.
work with them anymore because we're no longer a good fit, but
Okay.
I think transparency, it comes down to transparency and objectivity.
I think that's good advice, and it was an interesting one for me because I opened a restaurant years ago and I took money from family to do so. And it was a mistake. I'll be honest. It wasn't a mistake because there was bad intentions. It was a mistake because I never understood the emotional repercussions of what was coming down if things didn't go well and things didn't go as I planned. So that all said, it's an interesting thing because I think it's a lot of ways that people can get their first opportunities to jump into entrepreneurship. So that's good insight.
Yeah, my advice to a restaurateur who's going to be raising money from friends and family is to reach out to the rich uncle that isn't looking to get a return on his investment.
Right.
Because the chances of success are very low. So they have to feel like they're doing this as more of a, donation or just helping their
right.
Really because you don't want that to ruin multiple relationships.
Right.
Because there is a really high chance of failure. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. So
that said, yeah. Raffi, because I think that in your industry and specifically where you lie in the ecosystem of restaurants, I mean, you get a very interesting perspective because you're not just within one group. You have, you're essentially helping oversee many different groups, right? With different concepts, different markets, different operational styles, different seasonal kind of influences and all that stuff. So based on that, what do you think now is like the type of operations that are in the best position for today's kind of economy? Like, what are you seeing that works best in the restaurant world?
Super simple menu.
Okay.
At least 15% store level profitability. Typically, that's with fast casual concepts.
Okay.
And value, right? People that repeat customers, your Kavas of the world, right? That people will order from at least once or twice a week because they don't feel like cooking.
Right.
Especially now, especially going into Q3 of 2025, I feel that consumers are becoming more and more sensitive with their discretionary spending. So at least from what I've seen, that's, there are outliers, the hot new Michelin star restaurants in town that, print money for the first couple of years, those are outliers, but after a few years, they typically kind of dwindle down to around 5 to 10% profitability. But the ones that scale and grow and multiply and raise money and eventually sell to private equity, it's the super simple concepts that are running 15 to 20% margins, store level profitability at least, that have a proven track record. A big mistake that we see across the board with concepts that are looking to grow and scale fast is they grow and scale not too fast, but they grow and scale too quickly before they have nailed down the store level profitability. So they might have like location one is at like 20% profitability, right?
Yeah. Which means
they'll open location two.
We want 100 now.
Yeah, exactly. So they will either raise money or bootstrap the second location. And the second location will be like break even, maybe even lose money, maybe 5%. But then they can't bootstrap anymore because they don't have the profits to reinvest. So then they will go out and raise money for like 3 locations. And so now your track record is only 1 location, but you have 2 and you want to open 3. So then you bootstrap, or you raise money for 3 more locations. The next 2 or 3 start losing money, and you're like, oh wait, I don't really have a model here.
Oof.
And then in like 3 years, they have to basically
Start to
scale
dwindle
down to back
back.
to that one. Yeah, to that 1 location. So like, the most successful concepts are probably the ones that have a healthy location number 1, bootstrapping the location 2. Location 2 is then healthy. Then they think about 3 and 4. And then at 5 and 6, maybe start raising money. It depends on everybody's situation. Some people start raising money with location 1 and 2, and that's fine as well. But I think the track record, like having that working business model, and the working business model isn't, you have people lined up to give you money. It's you have, 50 to 55% prime costs, 15% store level profitability, and you have people lined up at the door. That's a working business model. And it's, those are your Paneras of the world, your Five Guys of the world, your Dave's Hot Chickens. It's very rare. So problem is everybody thinks of the next Dave's Hot Chicken or the
Yeah.
next,
Well,
Tava. But
I think there needs to be a certain level, right, of trust in self, ego, narcissism, whatever you want to call it, to believe that what you've got, people want, right? So I think that
yeah,
without the confidence, most likely, I think most of these companies will never start or get off the ground. But to your
yeah,
point, I think hitting it on the first one, which compels you to, of course, try and do more. I think even that is very rare, right? Like to
right. Yeah,
so I think often operators, if you have one store that's crushing it, I'm not saying don't go open more, but I think you should also do a little rain dance, look at the sky, thank whoever you want to thank in that moment, whether it's gods or God or spirits or whatever,
yeah,
right? Because that's not
yeah,
normal. That's not normal.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
but wait, okay, so speaking of not normal, so have you worked, Raffi, in other industries before taking the plunge into Fork CPA?
Oh yeah, when we first launched, we were industry agnostic. We were supporting professional services businesses, marketing agencies, nonprofits, tech startups, even doing personal taxes,
Okay.
annual taxes without bookkeeping, and so basically whatever you need to do. It was a traditional, it was a modern traditional public accounting firm. So we were very cutting edge, using all the new technology to automate and provide a more frictionless client experience, but yet still provide traditional services. So that
Okay.
was the firm in the early days. So we've worked with a variety of different types of clients, and restaurants were always the most difficult to deal with, ironically. So and just because it's such high volume, it's most of the operations are, not most of them, but a big chunk of the operations don't make money. So it really it makes the cash flow management or accounts payable process very time consuming as like an outsourced accounting service.
Yeah.
But back to those 3 or 4 reasons that I mentioned, something sucks you in, and you just, I was like, hey guys, our lowest profitable industry vertical is the one we're going to pursue forever. How about that?
How did people
So,
within your organization respond to that?
well, we actually did it a little gradually. So we launched the Fork brand in 2022, I believe, and we still kept some of the other clients.
Okay.
And then our value proposition for restaurants was so high. So I think it was obvious to our employees. They saw it. We have a very smart team. They understand the business aspect of things as well. And our growth rate for restaurants was much faster than
I
all
see.
the other verticals as a result of the value proposition. So then 2023 is when we spun off the non-hospitality piece of our practice and sold it to another firm.
Got it. And then
Yeah.
all in on
All in,
on
man.
the
Yeah.
toughest industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you brought up an interesting one, Rafi, because in the past, when I was in restaurant operations, I used to always be jealous of consultants. I used to always be jealous of these people who would come into an operation and they would get to like play in different concepts and work with different owners, and usually they would come in what looked like doing the funnest things, like setting up the menu, or
Yeah.
like, hey, let me bring in my kitchen designer so that we can set up this thing for success, all this stuff, right? And then I
Mhm.
finally got into consulting, and I realized that the easiest part was probably getting people to buy in on the fact that you could help them with their concept, operation, do a turnaround, whatever. Then very quickly, I realized the hardest part was getting paid. And
Mm.
I think it's something that is rampant across the industry. I mean, from the vendors who service the restaurants to the tax collectors, and boy, do I have stories about that, all the way down to the employees, right? Because there's always this game of like trying to juggle, like you said, the
Mhm.
cash flow, right? To ensure that everything is kind of like falling into a only 3 days late kind of thing. Now, I can
Yeah.
only imagine the types of pressures and creativity, right? And organization needed to execute on that stuff. But from the perspective of seeing from the outside, because you're the first one who knows when an operation is in a really tough spot, right?
Right. Right.
How do you have those conversations, and how do you address the issue of, hey, I've got to get paid, while at the same time trying to be sensitive to probably what's a very tough and emotional situation for owners? How would you say is a good way to approach that for people who are listening who might be in the same situation?
Wow, that's a very unique question that nobody's ever really asked me, but it's very, very relevant, right? So, like you said, the writing is usually on the wall
Yeah,
when
yeah.
when you see,
Well,
multiple periods of losses.
yeah.
But
And
where are you
what
gonna?
I was gonna ask, because this is also, I think, important for restaurateurs and operators to start being objective with themselves. What are some of the signs? Just like, I mean, obviously not making payroll or being late with vendors, but maybe even other things, like
Mhm.
you see it, right? So what are some kind of things you're like, oh,
Yeah.
there's some trouble ahead?
So because we're a outsourced controllership service and not just bookkeeping, we're pretty actively involved in not financial planning, but more financial analysis, monthly health checkup calls. And so our controllers are pretty in tune to what's going on. And as long as the operators participate, we will be able to point out red flags, right? And one of
Okay.
them is liquidity. So liquidity, we measure using the current ratio, which we measure your current assets compared to your current liabilities. So once we see that number, it should be 1 to 1 for a healthy restaurant. Let's say that's our
That's what
benchmark.
your goal is, right?
That's
So
what we're looking for. Now, I'm not going to say that's always the
of
case. I
course.
mean, even if you look at, the publicly traded restaurant index, you'll see that I think over 50% of restaurants or something high like that are below 1 to 1 current ratio. So even publicly traded restaurant companies are
Yeah.
are not liquid enough. So that's typically, we'll bring that up to the client. Hey, you know, we want to see you at 1 to 1, and it's always the same cause. It's always profitability that
Of
is
course.
causing them to not be at 1 to 1, not have enough cash and not enough current assets relative to their liabilities. So then you start going lower and lower, like point 0.8 and then 0.7 and then 0.5. And then once you start
Ah,
getting into like 0.2, 0.1 territory, where that's when I typically get involved and say, do you guys have a plan?
got it.
Clearly you haven't been profitable for 6 or 7 months. And then typically they will respond and say, yes, we're going to reconceptualize. This concept isn't working. The area has been hit by X such and such. Crime has been high in this area. So there's always a reason. And most of the time operators are very well aware, right?
Yeah. Okay.
They might not know debits and credits, but operators know when foot traffic, when traffic is down, when sales are down, and they feel the pinch. They see the cash balance drop. But yeah, I don't really have an approach to it. I think it's just a objective and transparent conversation again.
If
You know,
if you had a conversation like that with your uncle, it's even easier with somebody who's not
yeah,
who's not showing up for
yeah. Luckily,
Thanksgiving.
luckily, I never had to. Yeah, luckily, I never had to have those conversations with family. But it comes down to being honest, and it's hard when it's your own business, right? And it's hard having that conversation, and you don't want to step on any toes. And as a person sitting at home and doing accounting
Yeah.
from the comfort of your desk, it's hard to tell an operator what to do when they know their business best.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot we don't know when you're not there in the day to day. We don't know why sales are low or why the
Sure.
covers have decreased. So
Or if
it's difficult. It's definitely a difficult
yeah,
conversation. But I think that's where we kind of try to like maintain our boundaries and say,
of
well, this is
course.
our role. We're financial reporting experts. We will point out some issues here and there, but we're never going to advise you on how to run your business. So
Understood. Yeah, it's
yeah.
tough. But like on a positive way, I'm sure you've had these kind of conversations where you are able to isolate, okay, here's an issue, or here's a problem, or here's a way we can save money, or here's a way that maybe changing the operational hours, or, focusing on these things that are really driving profitability from a product side can really change, right? I'm sure you've
Mhm.
had really, for as many bad ones, positive ones, right?
Yeah, those are the success story. That's why we love to do what we do is when you get a client, and this is typically the clients, the restaurants that don't have a sales problem, they have a cost management problem. With sales as a financial controller, advisor, there's only so much we can do besides pointing out that there's a sales issue. And by that time, operators already know there's a sales issue.
Yeah.
But if your sales are really high, there's a line out the door, you got great reviews, but you're constantly losing money, I think that's when clients get the most value out of our service because we have the call and we get, okay, let's look at the trends. Let's see what, is it prime cost? If it's prime cost, is it COGS? Is it labor? And then we ask questions and then they almost answer. Again, most of the time operators know, especially if they're actively involved in the business, they know what's causing it, but they kind of need a
Yeah.
third party to clarify and confirm that, yes, it is labor. Let's revisit our labor scheduling. And as long as they participate in those calls and they act upon the reports that we send them on a weekly basis, you can see immense impactful results very quickly. So I love those. I love those clients and those success stories because when you see the direct results very quickly, it is very quick. It's not like marketing. Marketing takes time. Like you invest and you see results. With accounting, you can tweak it by week and you will see your cash balance increase. So
Yeah.
it's very actionable and impactful when you see the results.
Yeah. It's as tough of this as this industry is, and as much as the emotional pendulum can go, I think helping to isolate ways, making life easier and more fulfilling for people that obviously are putting so much into a business is like incredibly gratifying. And those become the
Mhm.
best. I mean, no matter how much marketing you could ever do, the clients you truly help and change their day to day, those are the ones that from the mountaintops will always recommend you, will always send you
Right.
to their friends. So I agree. I mean, it's like
Exactly.
it can be
And
super
you
fulfilling.
want more operators like them, and typically you surround yourself with people that are pretty similar to you. So if they are willing to act based on results and advice and reporting, then most likely, I mean, this is not always the case, but
Yeah.
you're going to get more operators like them that are. It's all about being curious and open, right? If you have so much of an
Yes.
ego that you're not going to be willing to change your business because the numbers are telling you to, then can't really do much there. But yeah, the most successful operators we see are the ones that listen and consume what you have to say. And again, we have to be careful because we're not operational experts, but
Sure.
if they take the numbers and the points that we've given based off the financial reporting and act upon them, you can get results. Even 2%, like if you're running a $2 million or $4 million operation, 2% will change your life. I mean,
It
you'll
certainly
change your
will.
entire business. So,
Yeah. That could be as much as paying most of your rent for the year.
well, or your accountant, right? You can
Yeah.
hire three accountants for 2-3% for most operate, so it's, and that is like, it's mind boggling how often overlooked that is,
Yeah.
especially with multi units. It's like if you
Yeah.
just shave 1% from each location, you can add so much to the bottom line.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
It is a nuanced and detailed kind of business, and I think you're spot on. I mean, um, the details, especially in this. I mean, from the experience to the bathrooms to how the music is set up, and but that trickles
yeah,
all the way to the P&L. Unfortunately, right? It's like
yeah,
there's no one big sweeping change that usually is going to solve everything. So
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Um, so I think, I love to see that there is more and more specialization on the services side of restaurants happening. And firms like yours, I feel like this is just the beginning, I think, of the growth of focused firms and the growth of focused services that are industry specific. And
Hmm.
I mean, there's so many great reasons, of course, to work with a firm like yourself that focuses in restaurants. But what kind of things, if you were like, say, for example, I'm opening a restaurant, I'm working with my local practice, my local firm that, they're good people, they're involved in community. Obviously, there's a relationship there, but I'm not getting the type of information I need to make actionable decisions. What kind of things do you think are red flags or, more importantly, opportunities for improvement that you see when clients come over to your service or when they're working with firms that don't specialize in restaurants?
The the ultimate red flag is the balance sheet. So
Okay.
if you have all the dead bodies are on the balance sheet, my friend.
Okay. I
So
like that.
if you're working with an accountant that is engaged weekly, which in a $1 million plus restaurant, you should have an accountant engaged weekly, in my opinion. Uh, if they're unable to provide you a reconciled balance sheet on a weekly basis, I think that's a red flag, or
Okay.
at least like 90% reconciled. Because if you're receiving weekly P&Ls or prime costs or any type of cash flow report, none of those reports mean anything unless the balance sheet is reconciled.
Okay.
And it's because it's a closed system. And I'm going to use an example. So
Yeah.
using cash, right? So cash is king, right?
Yeah.
That's the main balance sheet item, the one at the top. And if your cash balance is 100,000 at the beginning of the week, and you you write $50,000 in checks, and at the end of the week, your cash balance should be 50,000, right? Those checks might not have cleared. That's
Mhm.
okay, whatever. That's fine. That's irrelevant. But you should be able to look at your balance sheet and see $50,000 on your balance sheet. But what if you look at it and it says like 70,000, but you wrote 50,000 in checks? That means whatever report that $50,000 is on is wrong because the cash is showing 70,000. So it's a closed system. The P&L doesn't mean anything unless the balance sheet is correct. So that's usually one red flag. The other thing, the other component that you should look for with a restaurant is some type of weekly snapshot or flash report. Ideally, prime costs. We provide prime costs in addition to like a working capital and cash flow report every week. But those are, and if you're not getting it from your accountant, getting it from somewhere
Okay.
and making sure that the numbers are accurate. And a common problem we will typically run into is operators love the restaurant management systems, Extra Chef, Restaurant 365, Margin Edge. And so they'll use those for prime costs. But then you ask them, well, how do you know they're accurate? How do you know the numbers are accurate in there? And they don't, typically, oh, we just
Ah,
upload invoices we assume is correct.
right.
But then you have one or two missing invoices that screws everything up. And now you're making decisions based off of wrong data, which is actually worse than not even having the data in the first place. So
And,
I
and
guess to sum it up,
a lot of specific invoices don't get into the system either, whether it's rent or it's your healthcare costs.
mhm,
It's things that aren't part of the day to day operation that people
mhm,
don't think to upload. Like if you own the bricks and you've got real estate taxes, how are you accounting for that?
right, right. Well, the that stuff for sure never gets accounted for unless it's in the in QuickBooks or Restaurant 365 in your actual ledger. But what I'm referring to is a lot of operators now will access their prime costs in two different systems. They'll use Toast or whatever POS they're using
Mm,
for their labor.
uh-huh.
So they'll punch all their labor
Understood.
hours into Toast and run labor here, and then they'll use Margin Edge for COGS or Extra Chef
Sure.
for COGS.
Right.
But nobody's reconciling and overseeing the invoices that are in Margin Edge. So you might have missing invoices. There's nobody requesting statements and reconcile. So that's another exercise that should be part of the accountant's responsibility or bookkeeper's responsibilities. And unfortunately, a lot of accountants don't do it. They just put it on the operator, which what
Yeah.
operator is going to have the time to sit there and reconcile vendor statements with invoices that are in like it's impossible, right? So,
And that often is
so
more that often is more tedious and harder work than actually getting the invoices into the system. Because I mean,
yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like so because I guess what I'm trying to say, Raffi, is as a former operator, me just getting the invoices into a system was a big lift, right? And this, of course, was back before Shoebox and all these kind of platforms even were a thought. I remember many restaurant
hmm
operators pushed back on me saying, "It's crazy, stupid idea. Why would I want my invoices on the cloud?" Now, hopefully, it's becoming a standard in the industry. But I got told
yeah,
that, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
then asking people to reconcile anything, whether it's a vendor statement or an account in your bank account or a relationship with a loved one that you ruined because you work in restaurants, is impossible as an
yeah,
operator, right? Even the word is
yeah,
scary. So
right.
I think it's a great point that the tools that you're using to measure your business are only as good as the system you have in place to actually ensure they're accurate.
Yeah, and I believe any qualified or anybody that sells themselves to be an expert in restaurant accounting or bookkeeping should be utilizing automation to its fullest so that they can then focus on overseeing and maintaining the systems and making sure all the invoices are actually uploaded. Otherwise, you might as well just go back to using a spreadsheet. And that's what, I talked to a lot of these like old school chefs, and they're maybe it's less common now, but this was a few years ago when you were still trying to sell people on these systems.
Yeah.
And they were getting all of their GMs or sous chefs or whoever was doing it in the kitchen to input invoice amounts into a spreadsheet every week, calculate their food costs like that.
Yeah.
And I would try to convince them that's probably a waste of time.
Yeah.
But from their perspective, which I can see as well, is I want my staff to have accountability. And I want them to, which like, okay, come on. But really, like at this point, it's like, well, let them have accountability by viewing a prime cost report instead of
Yeah.
spending 3 hours a week inputting invoices. So,
Yeah.
you know, but I think that should be a bookkeeper and accountant's responsibility. At this day and age, there's so much automation that with the
Yeah.
right price point, you can get all this done and get weekly reports and not need your internal team to have to lift a finger, right? They should just be uploading invoices and that's it. That's their
Yeah.
responsibility, right?
Yeah.
So
You bring up a great point about automation. So obviously, I believe, and it ceases to amaze me how many new restaurant focused startups there are on a daily basis. It's like it never ends, and often for solutions that there already are tech in place for, it's just a dynamic. It's a dynamic industry in that sense, and it's only gotten noisier and more complex, I feel like, with time. And so, what I wanted to ask you specifically on automations and tech so far is like, how annoying or how often or how intrusive is our restaurant salespeople, people trying to sell to you? How much does that take up a part of your day? And what do you think are good ways to approach this for people who want to sell to either restaurants or firms like yourself? And what are bad ways? Like what are the ways that you feel like are not working anymore?
yeah, there's this company Shoebox. They just won't leave me alone. They're just like,
Dude.
so honestly, it doesn't affect me as much. I don't know how much it affects our operators or our clients.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, there's app fatigue is a real thing, and operators are just getting exhausted. There's an app for everything, software for everything, and I think I think that's why Restaurant 365 is doing so well. Like that's their
Yeah.
selling point is it's an all-in-one, like you don't
Right.
have to worry about ops, and now they have the task checklist and all that. You can almost run your whole business on Restaurant 365 alone with the
Right.
payroll, especially like they just integrated I think they were using a third party for payroll before, now they have it integrated. So yeah, it's not a real problem for me, at least. I just kind of ignore the noise and try to focus on, we have two standard tech stacks, and I know there's probably better tools out there for specific. Each tool has a specific
Yeah.
problem that it solves, and it's probably the best at solving those problems. But at a certain point, you got to draw the line and say, this is
Yeah.
enough. Like it's just because every tool you implement, now you have to train, 50 people on that tool, and then every
Yeah.
tool you implement can also break, and then now you have to hire somebody to monitor and maintain that. So it snowballs, and so you got to be really careful with the number of tools that you're implementing. So.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And then, so as a diner, when you go out to eat, how much do you feel like your perspective has changed dramatically on your experiences now when you go out? Like, and I gotta imagine in New York, just as an example, when you go out, you go to a local bar, right? And you ask for a beer and a burger. I don't even know how expensive it is in New York because I stopped looking at checks because they just hurt every time I go out anymore. But as someone who focuses exclusively on the industry and obviously is involved in so many different types of operations, if you were, for example, to go out to a client's bar or restaurant and you had an either great or not so great experience, I struggle with this, Rafi. So this is why I'm asking you. Do you ever feel like it's a responsibility to be completely honest about your experience if it wasn't positive? Or do you feel like it's better not to add more to the never-ending pile of bullshit that a restaurant owner has to deal with? Like,
Yeah.
have you been in that situation?
Well, the short answer is it has ruined everything for me. You know,
It
like
has.
you
Yeah.
can't go out to a nightclub or a bar or restaurant and comfortably just like think about the good time you're having. You just have to constantly think about the numbers.
I know, dude. I went to one of
I
my
mean, no, it's not that big of a deal, but my friends are probably annoyed by it because everywhere we go, we're like, "What do you think the AUV is here?" Or what do you think the revenue?
Oh,
And then you
right.
start counting the seats, and then you start
Yeah.
looking at the hours, and you're like, I think they're doing like 3.5. All right, what's the square footage? Oh, so okay, they're doing like 1,200, 1,200 sales per square feet. Yeah, I think they're doing good. And then you like, by the time you know your
Gosh.
meal is over and your whole conversation is about the
Yeah.
success of the restaurant. But
So
yeah,
I have a good
but with our clients in particular,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, please, please, please.
No, I was gonna say with our clients in particular, yeah, it's you have a soft spot because you
Right.
feel like it's your baby. You go there, you have a responsibility. I almost feel like I'm a secret shopper because
Right.
I will, but you have to be careful because that's not your role, right? You're just
Yeah.
you're the financial, you're the controller,
Right.
not the marketing or sales team. But yeah, you always want to see the best, and you only see the best.
Yes.
I could go to two concepts exactly the same, one being our client and one being not our client.
You're like, the
And
other
I'll
one
be like, yeah, this
sucks.
place sucks.
Yeah.
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 But then you go to your client, you're like, oh yeah, the GM here is great. They're so
Yeah.
nice. I'm going to buy an extra dirty martini because I want to support that.
Right.
There's definitely a little bit of that, but I think you have to be careful with the feedback because you could really probably annoy the operator with.
So I had a client in Philly that became a good friend, and we would actually go out to eat together. And we were talking about a restaurant that we both had gone to. And he said, man, I'm fucking over that place because I never know when they're opened. I never know when they're closed. At least at my place, I know what kitchen's open till 1 every day. Bar is open till 1 every day. And, I'm sick of these restaurants that take liberty to like just adjust based on volume, right? And I'm like, as a restaurant owner, like I really respect his opinion. He runs a great restaurant. He has like 5 or 6 restaurants. And funny enough, the same exact thing that he was describing to me about a different restaurant was happening at his, because I had tried to
Oh
take,
no.
dude,
Yeah.
and I like thought about it for a second. I'm like, should I tell him? And I'm like, I
Yeah.
gotta tell him. I gotta tell him. And I was just like, I won't say his name, but I was like, dude, I want you to know I tried to take a client to your spot because it's such a great spot for late night. And,
Yeah.
and his flight was delayed, blah, blah, blah. And I tried to take him, and they had closed the restaurant. And
Oh no.
now I'm putting the person that my team emails under the bus. You know what I mean? But it's like, how else do they find out? It's
Yeah.
such a weird situation. But
Yeah.
yeah, anyway, I think
Yeah.
I think the secret shopper
Yeah.
aspect and perspective is a good and important one, because ultimately we want to see all of our clients succeed. And I think from the perspective of a business owner, you always want to make sure that you're sharing insights that can help them make good decisions for their business, right? So
Yeah, and it goes back to what I was saying in the beginning with it's the closest way to being a consultant is the best way to own a restaurant without actually having to own a restaurant. So you almost feel responsible for the success of your clients, which is what makes it rewarding and
yeah.
appealing.
So for anybody who's considering a move to service restaurants in any kind of way, whether it's like, I own a window cleaning business, or I sell linens, and I have always worked with hospitals, and now I want to get to restaurants, stuff like that. Or in this case, right, consultants, cost consultants, financial consultants. What do you think are some major learnings or differences between a startup technology company or a local marketing company and a restaurant? What are like some things that you've learned now focused exclusively, for better or worse, on this industry that maybe you may not have encountered in other kinds of industries?
Yeah, first and foremost, you gotta love hospitality. Like everything else aside, you have to have a passion for the business itself because it's very, very difficult dealing with the sheer volume, the personalities, the low margins. So if you don't actually love restaurants and going out to eat and the whole experience, you're probably going to want to get out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I think even when we hire with like our controller level people, especially, we want to make sure they actually are attracted to the industry.
Yeah.
Aside from the accounting work or whatever work you're doing, it could be plumbing for restaurants or it could be law for restaurants. You got to have the passion for hospitality. So that's the first, because otherwise everything you're going to hate everything else about it. Who loves coding 500 invoices, or who loves
We do.
digging through well, you guys do, yeah. That's true. But yeah, like I think that's the most important. But the other component of it to be aware of is that it's a business that actually needs to operate like a business. It needs to be profitable,
Yeah.
sustain itself. It's not a tech startup I still don't fully grasp the concept of raising money with no revenue and then scaling up and then all of a sudden being worth nothing and then over $1 billion. I
never understood it either.
what I'm saying, it's a real
thing.
Main Street business. It's a real thing. Like if you're not making money for 2 months, you might have to shut down. There is nobody's gonna, reach out and give you $1 million overnight to stay open because they think you're going to be worth $1 billion one day. So that's the other thing to be aware of. Whereas with government contractors and nonprofits and tech startups, it's a little different. And they're also very price sensitive.
Yeah.
Restaurants, because
really
the margins are low.
Yes.
So you have to be aware that you're probably, again, unless you're really passionate about this industry, there's easier ways to make money.
Yeah.
So don't do it for the money. Yeah. Well, for us, especially with accounting, restaurants were the least profitable industry. Tech startups are a great niche to be in.
Yeah.
They're very price elastic. And Digital marketing agencies, great industry to be in as a service provider. They're
Yeah.
very profitable, they pay well, they're very professional,
Yeah.
responsive. So I think it all goes back to like you got to love the industry, otherwise there aren't, there aren't there isn't a big potential to make easy money, I guess is what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah. It makes all the sense in the world, which means that you must love food, you must love restaurants, you must love hospitality, because otherwise you're clinically insane for doing what you do. And
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Well, I think everybody's a little insane, right? That's part of the industry. You got to
yes,
have a certain type of drive and passion to be able to deal with all the difficulties.
amen to that, my friend. Amen. So, okay. So going back to love and to put a cherry on the top of this insane restaurant world that we all participate in. So as of now, Raffi, if you were to say, let's say, we go sign a huge deal. We're super excited. There's a lot of growth happening, not just for you and the Fork CPAs team, but like for internally, it means, people get a chance to learn new things and all that stuff. And we're going to go celebrate. What for you is like a celebratory meal, or what's like a dish, like we going out for sushi, we going out for a steak. Like what for you is like, oh man, I want to dig in, and I really want to and I don't want to do a cover count. I don't want to look at how many napkins they went through while we ate. I just want to enjoy a meal. What's that for you?
You mean a particular restaurant or a
Sure.
particular meal?
It could be a particular restaurant, it could be a genre, it could be like a place. Like, do you have like a place that you've been dying to go to or that you love going to?
Man, that's an unfair question, man. That's an
Listen,
unfair question. That's like saying what's your favorite song? Like I don't know. Like I have so many things.
but listen, that by itself is such a great response because it's true. I mean, look, I love food as well. I could tell you
Mhm.
a great sushi restaurant is one of my favorite things to experience because there's no damn way I'm going to make sushi at home. And even if I
Yeah.
attempt it, it's not going to be good. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
sushi's always the tops for me. I love ethnic foods. I love Thai, but ultimately, I want a big ass
Mhm.
ribeye if I'm celebrating personally.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I like the new American with a dirty martini,
Yeah,
the blend, the upscale casual style, where it's kind of a mix of things.
I like that
The
too.
sourdough bread with the pasta, but also like a lamb rib dish with
Ooh,
tzatziki on top. That's like I think
okay,
that's like the ideal meal. But if it's
nice.
like a casual Friday, it's always pizza night. We go, we're in New York, so we got the best pizza. We go, down the street and there's like, you know, would you want Napoli style? Do you want New York style? You want Chicago? There's so many different options. So I think it just depends. But if I'm celebrating, probably something like that. Probably like
Okay,
I don't have a particular spot, but there's so many of them. You just can't, especially
I get it.
and I live in Greenpoint. Greenpoint's like the new hottest neighborhood for food in New York City now.
Is
So
it?
yeah, it's all the new best spots are opening up in Greenpoint. So, we're lucky to be here. We moved here like 3, 4 years ago. And that's kind of when the boom started with all the restaurants and bars moving here.
I love it.
So a lot of different options.
I feel like a restaurant is crushing it. Like a restaurant really resonates when you're like, I need to work with these people. You know what I mean? Like, and I've had a few experiences like that where I go to a restaurant and I'm
Yeah.
like, dude,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's through a partner or if it's just processing invoices, but I got to figure out how to work with these people because I freaking love this place. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
that's when they hit to me. You know what I mean?
exactly. And again, that's why you do what you do is
I
because of
know.
those moments where you walk in and you're like the money doesn't really matter, right? It's just like it's the experience at the end of the day when you walk into that establishment and you feel like you're part of it.
Yeah,
And you can't get that with any other industry. No matter
you're
what you
absolutely right.
do in the industry, whether you're the lawyer, the plumber, the chef, the software company, you just
Yeah.
can't. What other industry can you get that with where you actually can walk into an establishment that is vibing, that people
Ah,
are hanging out at, having drinks, maybe
yeah.
on their laptops, and you feel like you've had an impact and influence
And you
in
know
that
what?
establishment.
when one of your clients becomes that darling restaurant that's impossible to get into, but you have
Oh
a
yeah.
direct line to the GM and you're like, yo, I need those fucking cash outs, like to finish the P&L, please. And can I have a
Yeah.
3-top for fried?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a nice
Yeah.
place
Yeah.
to
For
be.
sure.
It's a nice
Yeah.
place to be. All right. Well, Raffi,
That's right.
I think you are an awesome guy, man. I'm super excited to see you out. You're going to be at RFDC this year?
For sure. Yeah. Excited to hang out.
I'm excited to see you. I think you guys do incredible work. If anybody wants to find you, where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Raffi Yousefian, or they can go to our website, theforkcpas.com. And yeah, LinkedIn, probably direct message if you want to talk to me directly.
Cool.
That's the best way.
And then to finish it off, as a lover of all things culinary and hospitality, I happen to be recording direct from Bogota. And Raquel, who obviously has been instrumental in getting the 86 Reason podcast together, it makes it a point to send a gift to all of the guests who come on the show. Now, the question is, are you a coffee lover? Are you a chocolate lover? What can we send to you as our gift from 86 Reason podcast as a little memento? What kind of things do you like? Do you like chocolate?
We'll pour over coffee, duh. Didn't we have that conversation?
Okay. And are you a natural? Are you a honey? Do you have any specific type of coffee? You like balanced? You like fruity? You like acidic? What's your coffee taste like?
Yeah. I like the lighter roast fruity flavors. So like strawberries, citrus.
I know
It
why
can
you're
be
in
up
this
to medium
industry.
roast.
I know why you're in this industry. You have a particular taste, and I have a feeling that particularity, we share that because I like good things, and I could tell you like good things too. All right, so
Oh, okay.
we're
Great.
gonna find you some badass light roast, micro lot, single origin, single varietal coffee. We'll get you some of
Coming
that.
straight from the source?
Oh, it's coming.
From
It's
Colombia?
coming from
Oh,
here.
wow.
And then, how
Nice.
about? Are you a chocolate lover?
I'm not big on chocolate. I'm okay. Yeah.
How
But
about?
my wife is. So if you want to send chocolate, I would love it.
Okay, does she like milk? Does she like darker chocolate, more intense, or does she like more like with nuts and salted caramel, that kind of thing?
No, like a simple dark chocolate, like 70% cocoa, maybe.
You guys are my kind of people, dude. You guys are my kind of people. All right, cool. Well, we'll be in touch to get your info. Raffi, thank you so much for joining the podcast. Thanks for all you do for the industry. Thanks for loving this stuff. And I can't wait to see you, my friend.
All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
86 Reason Podcast was brought to you by Over Easy Office, outsourced bookkeeping solution